Now, sampling, there we go. We said it is selecting, right? And that is what they'll tell you here. It is the process of selecting a small group from a larger population to do a study on it, okay? Or in order to collect data from it, okay? It is the selection of a small group from a larger population for the purpose of collecting data from it, okay? So a sample, it is a part or piece of the population. That's very important. Let's say I want to study people at a university. I'm not going, or some universities say, for example, okay, let's say I want to study people in a certain town. I'm not going, and I know that I can, it's going to be hard for me to collect data from everyone in that town. So I'm going to choose some people from the town that I'm going to collect data from and then predict what everybody else is thinking from that group. Now, when we talk about this, you are not going to go to a different town and select people from a different town so that you can know about this town. No. If you want to know about a particular town, you choose a sample from that town. So sampling, it is where you choose a part of a population. It's a part of a population. You select a part of a population for the purpose of collecting data. Now, there are 4 ways in which you can do this. There are 4 types of sampling, and we need to know them by heart. I don't want you to just cram. There are 4 types of sampling. One is random. And for these things, the word tells you, okay? The word tells you. When we say you're doing something in a random way, it means you are not following any pattern, okay? And the opposite of that word is going to do is to do something in a systematic way. So if you want to do things in a nice way, following a pattern, we say you're doing it systematically. If you're not doing systematically, then you are doing things randomly. So when we say random sampling, remember, to sample is to select. When we say you're sampling, you are selecting a group of people from a population so that you can collect data from it for your study, okay? Now, what we'll be saying is, it's not so that you study. No, you are studying the whole population. But sample is only for data collection. Please use the right words. You don't do sampling to study, no, but to collect data from. So here, let's just say to collect data, okay? So let's say to collect data, right? Sorry for that. Anyway, now let's talk about the method of sampling. Number 1, we'll be saying random sampling. What is this? This is a method used to select, right? In which, here is what we want. Every individual in the population has an equal probability of being chosen. So this is the only way in which we describe random sampling. It's a method of selecting a group from a population, in which the thing about random sampling is it is one in which every individual or every item in the population has an equal probability or an equal chance of being chosen. So that is what random sampling is. It is a way of sampling in which every individual or every data in the group or every item in the group has an equal chance. Every item in the population has an equal chance of being chosen. And do you know how they do this? How it's done is everything in the population is given a number. So every single thing. So that is hard because you, in this sampling method, you have to register every single individual in the population. Okay, so that is one way. So it's almost all the time when random sampling is being done that every individual is given a number, and then numbers are chosen at random, either by a computer, or you can put, like, say you're shuffling, you can put names in a hat, and then you choose one, you mix them up, you choose one, so you choose each number, and then they can see the person. So because of this is going to be random. So random. So that's what I've given as an example, picking names from a hat, which happens at lotos and whatever, where you put names in a hat. So every person has been given a paper or a number, whatever, then numbers are then chosen randomly. So this is how random sampling is done. And everything in that hat, whatever, has an equal chance of being chosen. That is random sampling. It is the best when it comes to being fair. Now we go to stratified. So in random, what do you say? Every individual in the population has an equal chance of being chosen or selected, an equal probability or chance of being chosen or selected. It is a method of selection. That is what sampling is. So what about stratified sampling? So this method of selection where no pattern is followed is random, right? its opposite is going to be this one, number 4, which is systematic. Remember, there are only 4. Systematic, it is a method of sampling where every kth member or nth member is selected from a list. So that's a pattern. Let's say you are choosing the second member, every second member from a list or whatever is being chosen. That's a systematic. You're following some pattern, and that is not random and fair. So here we are saying what is systematic sampling? It is a method of sampling where every kth member is chosen from the population list. What you must remember is that for both random and systematic, you are choosing from the whole population. So it is from the population list. This is great, right? You're choosing from the whole population. Now, stratified, but in here you are choosing every kth member. Okay? Here, that's what you're selecting. Here you are selecting in a way that every individual has an equal probability or chance of being chosen. You don't follow any particular pattern. That is why everyone has an equal chance. Now we go to stratified sampling and cluster sampling. Now you have to know these two and know their difference because it's very small. The difference between it's not small, but make sure you understand it. Stratified and cluster. So now stratified, you see these words come from these things come from their words. When we say stratif, just like we saw that random, we understood it because we understood what the word random meant. You follow no pattern. Systematic, you follow some pattern, right? Now in stratified, this word stratified comes from the word stratum, okay, which leads to the word strata, okay. So stratum means a group. Strata means groups, okay? It's just groups. So when we say stratified, we are grouping, we are doing some groups, okay? Cluster, again, a cluster is a group, is a collection. We can say it is a collection, right? It is a collection. So now let's go and let's look at these two. So when we say cluster, we are collecting things. They are similar. We're collecting, it's a collection of things, different things. They may be similar, but different, right? And in strata, we didn't say anything about them being different. So now, what is this? So for these two, you first will group before you choose your sample. So I want you to know that when you talk about stratified and you talk about cluster sampling, these are all methods of sampling or methods of selecting. But in cluster sampling, okay, we know that in stratified, let's start stratified, the population is divided into groups, which is the same here. The population is divided into clusters. So the difference is, yes, they are being divided, but for stratified, you are dividing into strata, okay? The population is divided into strata or subgroups, okay? In here, it is divided into clusters, okay, before you start sampling. So that is the first difference. One is divided into strata, one is divided into clusters. You say to me, what is the difference between those two? Okay, so a stratum and a cluster, these two are different. When we say we have a stratum, right, it doesn't mean that the things in there are different. You can have a stratum, it's just a group, right? But the things in there could be the same. Everything in there would be. For example, an example of a stratum is gender. Okay, so we can start. Remember, okay, let's do this. When you are choosing into stratum or clusters, you are going to use something, right? So when I make my subgroups, I use some characteristic that is for stratum, and these characteristics in stratum they don't have to create groups in which individuals are varied. So for example, an example of a characteristic that I can use to choose the groups that I will use is gender, right? All right. I know that you can say, well, there are 3 genders like male, female, non-binary, that. So, but for ease of this study, I'm going to use, okay, we can use that. It's still fine. For ease of this study, I was going to use 2, right? Male and female for ease of this study. Now, male and female are the genders, right? We can have the whole group being male in a stratum, and we can have the whole group being female. So stratum does not create different things. But when you go to clusters, you can't use gender. in clusters because you want each cluster to be a smaller version of the population. Remember, let's say our population is going to be whatever we are studying, the whole individuals that are over 30 years or whatever, they are going to be males and females. Now, that is the population. For cluster, you can't make groups by gender because it's going to give you males only. That can't be a cluster. That's a stratum. So a stratum it doesn't have to be that the things in there are not going to be different. Okay, so just remember that when you are given an example and they ask you, is this a cluster or a stratum? Is this cluster, is this stratified sampling or it's cluster sampling? Look at two things. Number one, the group. Is it a cluster or a stratum? Stratum, remember, we know it's things like gender, age, income. You can have everybody being the same age. If I create groups depending on age, I'll say 10-year-olds, please go here. 20-year-olds, please go here. 30-year-olds. Now, everybody in that is going to be 10 years old, and everybody in another group is going to be 20 years old. Everybody in another group is going to be 30 years old. That's a stratum. Okay? Now, if I want a cluster, I will need it because look, in the population, you didn't have everyone being 10 years old. People were different ages. So for cluster, I need to create groups, but these groups should make sure that it's like a small population, a small part of the population. You understand? So it's like if the population had 10s and 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds, then a cluster should have those things. It should have 10-year-olds, 20-year-olds, and 30. So for cluster, what we usually use is things like, here are the things. Regions, okay, boundaries, to say we use wards or provinces or whatever, schools, people from different schools. If you look at a school, it will have different ages, different genders, and cities and companies. All this is going to be cluster sampling. How is that? So number one is the cluster. So what is stratified sampling? It is the method of dividing in which two things happen. Number one, the population is divided into strata or subgroups, right? Then a sample is chosen randomly from each group, okay? A sample is taken from each group randomly. So we're going to take from each of the groups, okay? From each of the groups. That's the second thing. Now for here, the population is divided, yes, but it's divided into clusters, okay? So remember that for these two, population is divided first. Before you start sampling, you divide before you start selecting. To sample is to select. So you divide into groups. In here, the groups are called clusters, okay? And here they're called naturally existing groups. In other words, they separate people evenly. Like there'll be males, females, older, younger, That's what a natural group is. It's not something where you focus on one thing, like males. Here, income, by the way, income is the stratum. You say to me, how? You can have the people that are for your population, something you are studying, for example, you can have people that are getting, or people that are billionaires, or people that are being all male. That should never happen in a cluster. It should never happen. People being all male, no. Okay, you understand? So because of that, income is a stratum. But for clusters, you see the things, companies, the cities, and whatever. Okay. And now the thing is, it is a selection method in which the population is divided into clusters, number one, and then random selection is done to choose whole clusters. So whole clusters are chosen randomly. In here, you are not going to go inside each of the groups and select randomly. No, you're going to select groups. So we can say in here, people from the northeast, northwest, whatever, and then we are just going to choose one of those groups randomly to say northeast. That's where we are going to, and we are going to study every individual in that cluster. So what is a cluster? What is cluster sampling? It is a method of selection of data in which the population, number one, as the population you start with, is divided into clusters. It is divided into clusters, and whole clusters are chosen randomly. Okay, whole clusters are chosen randomly. What about stratified? The population is divided into strata or subgroups called strata, and then individuals from each of the groups are chosen randomly. I know you have understood it. You have mastered it. Okay, that is it. I'm going to stop here. Goodbye for now.